What if I told you that you could need nothing and have everything? You could become like a magnet that attracts to you all of your true heart's desires. Sounds a little strange, right? I mean, it's quite different from what society teaches us. In fact, it's kind of the opposite. But the truth is that this is the secret that all truly successful people know that allows them to thrive. And meanwhile, the majority of us, we're doing the same old things. We're chasing after the approval, the validation, hoping that others will love us so that we can feel okay, seeking more money so that we can feel safe, looking for the six pack abs or the perfect diet or exercise routine or whatever it is so that we can feel safe and like finally we're going to be okay in life. But you see, life just doesn't work like that. Well, in the next hour, what I'm going to share with you is exactly how you can begin to live life in a very different way so that you can start to get very different kinds of results. It's actually possible for you to do that when you know this paradoxical principle and when you start to live that paradoxical principle in your life. And what is that principle? It's what I said at the beginning. By needing nothing, you can have everything. So, if that sounds like something that you're interested in, then stick around. And for those who do stick around, what I'm going to share with you is not only how to understand that principle, but also the exact method that I have personally used to get the results in my life, as well as probably hundreds of my own private coaching clients who have applied that and gotten the results for themselves as well. So I know that you can get the results. And not only am I going to share that method with you, I'm also going to coach you through the process so that you can experience that for yourself here today. And on top of that, I'm going to then answer any questions or doubts that anybody here has, because I want to make sure that you can actually work with this so that you can get the results, because that's what this is really about. It's not just about getting more information and then going on to the next YouTube video or whatever it might be. This is about actually knowing how to work with this so that you can change your life because that's possible. And that's what you really want. You don't want to just have more empty promises. You want to actually get the results so that you can really finally have what it is that you want in life. And if you think about it, that's the peace, the happiness, the freedom, the joy, the contentment, the love. And that's all possible for you when you know how to work with what it is that I'm going to share with you today. Now, the first thing that I'd like to take a little bit of time with is to understand the actual nature of the problem. And I can already hear some people complaining. They say, Joey, just give us the solution already. But you see, the reason why I take time in order to understand the problem is because I care, because I want you to get the results. And I know that if you don't understand the nature of the problem, you won't be able to apply the solution. Now, I know that might seem strange because most people are programmed to think that if they just get the solutions, then they're going to solve their problems. But if you notice, how many of those videos on YouTube have you watched where they give you the solution in 1 minute? And it didn't really work for you because you didn't understand how to apply it. And the reason why is because you didn't actually understand the nature of the problem. You see, most of the time we misunderstand the nature of the problem. And so we're looking in the wrong direction for the answers. Let me give you an analogy that might help this to make some sense. You see, there is a condition that's called morning sickness. And the actual cause in most cases of morning sickness is low blood sugar. Now, what does that mean? That means that the solution is to eat something. So if somebody has morning sickness and they say, just give me the solution already, I could say, here's a banana. And that person, oh, I should mention this. You see, one of the major symptoms of morning sickness is nausea. So that person, when I give them the banana, they're going to think that I'm mocking them. They're not going to understand that I've given them the solution, so they won't know how to make use of it. First, it's necessary that I educate the person. I help them to understand, although you're experiencing nausea and the last thing that you're thinking to do is to eat, actually, the problem is low blood sugar. And I promise you, if you just eat a few bites of this banana, you're going to feel better very soon. Then, with that information, they can trust that I've given them the right solution and they will make use of it and they will feel better. So it's very much like that. Most of the time, as I said, we misunderstand the problem and therefore we're looking in the wrong direction for the solution. So let's take just a few minutes up front to understand the nature of the problem. I promise it's going to be worth your while. Now, if you think about it, of all the variety of problems that people have in life, we could kind of distill it down to three categories, at least for the most part. And that would be health, money, and relationship. Don't you agree? And if you think about, again, all of the problems that make up those three categories, it seems on the surface to be an awful lot of things. But actually, and here's my promise to you, strange as it might seem, at the heart of it, it's really just fundamentally one problem. And I'll tell you what that problem is. That problem is that society has taught you that there's something wrong with you, something missing, something deficient, something lacking. And furthermore, society has taught you that in order to solve that problem, you need to seek outside of yourself in order to get the attention, the approval, the validation, the love from others, the affection. You need to get more money, more security, more something. It's always more something, something from outside of you. And then finally, you can feel that you're going to be okay. But as I've already pointed out, that doesn't work because it's not actually the truth. It's a lie. So I'm proposing to you that that is fundamentally the underlying problem. And I'd like to take now a few moments to explore how that problem plays out in each of these domains. So remember, I said most of the problems that people perceive they have can be categorized as problems with money, relationships, or health. And so I want to explore each of these domains and see how this problem plays out. And I made some notes here because I wanted to make sure that I was somewhat thorough in this so that you could understand this and see something of yourself in some of these things. So I hope you'll forgive me for reading from some of these notes. So when you consider relationships, for example, I wonder, do you know anybody who had sibling rivalry when they were children? And if you think about it, what's sibling rivalry? Sibling rivalry is really just a sense that there's something missing in me. I'm not enough. I need to have that validation and approval from my parents so that I can know that I'm good enough. In fact, I'm better than my sibling or siblings. Well, I wonder also, do you happen to know any siblings who continued that rivalry into adulthood? It's surprisingly more common than you might think. And again, it's the same fundamental problem. It's a sense of lack. I'm not enough. I need to know that I'm better than others so that I can feel okay. I also wonder, do you know anybody or have you known anybody who seeks approval from teachers or mentors? It's that classic teacher's pet syndrome. But of course, that's not just exclusively for children in school. It happens all the time. People who are seeking for approval from their mentors, their adult mentors, maybe their bosses. Again, it's just this sense of lack, incompleteness within, and they're looking for somebody else to validate them. I wonder, do you know anybody who over volunteers for church or community organizations or otherwise? I bet you do. And if you think about it, those people are also suffering from the same fundamental problem. They feel there's something missing within them. And if they could just get enough approval from other people, if other people could help to validate them and say, you are so wonderful, you volunteer so much, we really appreciate you, that somehow that's going to fill that void. Of course, it doesn't work. Do you know anybody who has an obsession with academic or professional achievement? I bet you do. And again, it's stemming from that same sense of lack. Oh, here's another one. Do you know anybody who has to always one up everyone else? You know, you have the circle of friends, and it's this person who is always having to have the better story. They know more important people, they know more important facts, they've been to more important places. What do you think that's coming from, other than a sense of lack? Do you know somebody who says yes to everything and they have a general lack of boundaries because they're terrified of conflict? In other words, people pleaser. Same thing, isn't it? It's a sense of lack within. Do you know people who collect others that they're trying to fix or save? Same thing, sense of lack. Do you know people who try to be perfect in order to avoid abandonment? Also a sense of lack. What about people who perceive feedback as a personal attack? Also a sense of lack. What about people who feel unsafe unless everyone else is happy? That's also a sense of lack. What about people who are constantly looking for reassurance from others? Obviously, a sense of lack. And what about people who feel that they always have to be right? Also, a sense of lack. Now, I wonder, can you recognize yourself in any of those things? Now, this is not to judge yourself or condemn yourself. This, I promise you, here is a safe space. Rather, this is about self honesty because only when you're really willing and ready to be honest about these things can you make the change. Because when you're willing to be honest, then you're willing to shine a light on it and finally recognize what's going on. As you'll see in a few moments, that's a key component to making the change. So just take a moment now and just notice, do you recognize yourself in any of those things? Because if so, good news, you can change starting today. I'm going to tell you how. I'm going to coach you through it so that you can start to experience that. And then you can apply that in your life more and more, and you can free yourself of all of these things. And as you do, you will need less and less, and you will have more and more. Now let's take a look at money. Do you know anybody who never seems to have enough money, no matter how much money they have? As if money somehow could fill the void that that sense of lack has within them. What about this? Do you know anybody who undercharges for what they do in order to be liked or because they fear that others might judge them negatively if they charged what their service was really worth? What do you suppose that's about, other than a sense of lack? Do you know anybody who chronically overspends, seeking status or attention? Also, a sense of lack. Do you know anybody who overworks in order to prove their worth and get approval from others? Also, a sense of lack. How about this one? Do you know anybody who enables others financially by giving or loaning money in order to try to buy appreciation? That's also a sense of lack. What about people who chase after one get-rich-quick scheme after another in hopes that making it big will help them to feel better about themselves? Also a sense of lack. Again, if you can recognize yourself in any of these things, that's good news because that means that you can begin the process of change today. Your life can really be different. Now, briefly, a couple of examples in the Department of Health. Do you know anybody who has practiced extreme diets or workouts in the name of health, believing that achieving super health or a perfect physique would give them happiness? What do you suppose that is other than a sense of lack? What about people who pursue biohacking with the promise of a perfect future health, which will allow them to feel empowered? Also a sense of lack. Or what about people who are compelled to try new supplement stacks and wellness protocols because they think that one day they're going to optimize themselves and then they'll be okay? Also a sense of lack. So if you recognize yourself in any of these things, as I've said multiple times, this is the beginning of real change for you. So don't worry if it feels at all uncomfortable to acknowledge that some of these things are things that seem to apply to you. Because, as I've said multiple times, the seeing is the beginning of the change. So don't shy away from it. Just recognize it. And in just a few moments, I'm going to share with you the exact method that I have used so that you can use it too. Now, before I do that, I want to take just a moment to share with you how I came to discover the method, because I think that can also be useful for you to understand how this came about. You see, just like everybody else practically on this planet, I also bought into the idea that there was something missing in me, something lacking, something deficient, something wrong, and that I needed to somehow fill that void by getting external things. So I sought all those things out. I recognize myself in many, if not most, of the things that I just listed a moment ago. And that's the truth. I From an early age, I thought that I had to prove myself by getting good grades, by being liked by others, by being a good boy. I thought that when I was an adolescent, I thought that I needed to somehow improve my my physical appearance so that I could get the approval, the validation, the love, the acceptance from others, so that I could feel okay. I felt that when I was 19, I started thinking that I needed to achieve super health. I became a raw vegan. I nearly I nearly starved myself to death several times trying to achieve perfect health. What an irony. And on I could go. I mean, I was in relationships. I was severely codependent. I would, if my girlfriends would say jump, I would say how high. I didn't matter to me. Anything that anybody, my girlfriends would do, I would instantly forgive them, and then I would try and get their approval and validation. I was desperate for somebody to give me what I thought I needed so that I could feel okay, because deep down inside I felt so empty. I didn't realize at that time what was really going on. I didn't realize that along the way I had forgotten myself. I had lost myself. I had forgotten my dreams. I didn't know who I was any longer. I was living my life for everyone else because I thought that I needed everyone else. I thought I needed something from them so that I could feel okay. I didn't realize that it was only because I had gotten so far out of center and forgotten myself that I was making that mistake in the first place. But there I was, and I was making all these mistakes. And many of you have heard my story before, and it got to a point in my life where it was very, very bad. I'd lost everything. I was in very, very bad shape. I was nearly dying. And at that moment, as many of you have heard, something shifted for me, and I discovered something very pivotal in my life. And that discover I could describe that discovery as I realized that I was fundamentally okay, as in safe, as in nothing was actually going to be able to harm me. And now, even though that was a pivotal transformation in my life, you might think that instantaneously that would have revealed to me that I didn't need anything from the outside in order to complete me. But actually, surprisingly, it didn't work that way. It went on for a number of years as this was unraveling. It took for me discovering what I'm going to share with you in just a moment before I was actually able to start to clean that up. You see, for a number of years after that moment, I was still thinking that I needed to please other people in order to be okay. I still thought that if other people weren't happy, I wasn't safe. I still thought that I needed more money in order to be safe and okay. I still thought that I needed to achieve better health before I could be okay. And as a result, many of the things that I was trying to get were just going further and further out of reach. I bet you can relate to that in your life. The more you chase, the more out of reach they seem to be. Well, finally, blessedly, it started to dawn on me, and I realized that I hadn't really connected the dots. I hadn't put two and two together. And when I did, I realized that this okayness that I had discovered it ran so much deeper and so much more throughout everything in my life than I had previously realized. And I started to realize the mistake that I had been making, that I had been looking outside of myself to be complete, and that I had been failing to acknowledge that I'm already complete and whole within, that I don't actually need something outside of myself. And when I made that discovery, then things really started to shift. My relationships became much more wholesome, much more at ease. My relationship with my wife transformed for the better. My relationship with my children transformed for the better. My relationship with my parents transformed for the better. My relationship with everybody transformed for the better. My relationship with money transformed for the better. And my relationship with health transformed for the better. Everything started to become much more relaxed. I experienced much more ease in everything. And this was not just something that happened to me, but it was something that happened through me. It was a realization, and it was something that I was putting into practice. And that's something that I'm going to share with you now so that you can also get these benefits without having to suffer in the exact same ways that I did, or at least not any longer. Now, if I was to put into a single phrase what the answer, what the revelation was, I would say this: it is self-love. And that's the truth of the matter. It really is truly self-love. But the problem is that if I had heard that answer years ago, I wouldn't have known how to make sense of it because I thought that love was something I had to do. I thought if you told me, Joey, the answer is self-love, I would say, well, I don't know how to do that. Or I'm just not the sort of person who's capable of that. And so I wouldn't have been able to make use of it. But the real discovery here is that self-love is actually not something that you do, but it's something that you are. It's already here at the core of you. And to discover the truth of self-love is to allow that to shine forth. You see, it's actually the things that you're doing that are interfering. So this is where this method that I talked about at the beginning is essential. So I'm going to share with you now this simple method that I have used and that I've shared with others, although not exactly in this format, that allows for people to begin to actually practice and experience self-love and all the benefits that come from that. And I wanted it to be something that would be easy for you to remember. And so I designed an acronym that can help you to remember it. So there are 3 steps to this. And this acronym will help you to remember the 3 steps, at least I hope. And the acronym is SLIPS, SLIPS. And it stands, and you can think of it and remember it as when you remember this, you will no longer slip up. Okay, so SLIPS. So SL is for the first step, and that stands for sense of lack. And I'll explain what these mean in just a moment. IP stands for the second step, and that stands for inner process. And stands for the third step, which is stop. So let me talk you through these steps, and then after I've talked you through the steps, then I'll actually guide you through this several times so that you can have a direct experience of it. So the first 2 steps, the first step, so SL stands for sense of lack. So anytime that you're experiencing a problem, it can be useful then just to notice that actually underneath all of your ideas of what the problem might be, if you really pay close attention, you'll notice that there is a sense of lack. You might use different words. You might call it a sense of deficiency, a sense that there's something wrong with you, a sense of emptiness, a void, or whatever else. But sense of lack, that's what SL stands for. And this is so important because if you don't recognize this, then you'll be often looking in the wrong direction. Does that make sense? If you don't understand the nature of the problem, you're going to be misunderstanding the problem. That's going to have you looking in the wrong direction for the solution. And this is what most people are doing most of the time. They think, I have this problem. This problem is that people don't agree with me. And that means that that they don't love me and I'm not safe. Or I have this problem. I don't have enough money and that means that I'm insecure and unsafe. Or they think the problem is that I don't have absolute security when it comes to health. And that means that I'm vulnerable and something bad could happen to me. They think this is how people think about the problems, if they think about them at all. And this leads people to the wrong answers, right? This leads people to all the kinds of things that I listed off before, right? They think, well, I guess the answer is that I have to work harder. I guess the answer is that I need to make sure other people are happy. I guess the answer is that I need to eat a perfect diet. I guess the answer is that I need to work out more. I guess the answer is that I need to get rich quick. I guess the answer is fill in the blank. They're looking for the wrong answers because they've misunderstood the problem. So the first step is to actually acknowledge the actual nature of the problem. Just notice that underneath it all, what's really driving this is a sense of lack. Because if somebody says to you, I don't agree with you, I think you're wrong. That can't possibly be a problem for you unless you perceive that somehow that is shining a light on some deficiency in you. But think about it. If you know fundamentally you are complete and whole, what difference does it make to you if somebody doesn't agree with you? It might be interesting information, interesting feedback. You might take a look at it and say, well, that's interesting that you don't agree with me. Help me to understand your point of view, because if you have a better point of view, then I'm interested in it. But if instead you feel defensive, if you feel insulted, if you feel belittled, humiliated, whatever it is, then stems from a sense of lack. And so on it goes with any of the kinds of problems that you might be experiencing of the sorts that I described earlier and many more. Does this make sense to you? So that's the first step, is to recognize that the underlying problem is a sense of lack, and that you cannot possibly solve that problem in the ways that you've tried to solve the problem in the past. Because if you really notice that sense of lack, what you're calling a sense of lack, or what I'm calling a sense of lack, it's kind of infinite. I mean, you've tried your whole life to fill that sense of lack, and it's never worked. It's never even made a dent in it. So maybe it's impossible to solve that problem in that way. So just recognize the actual nature of the problem. That's step one. Step two, IP, inner process. So with this step, it's to actually notice, what is it that I'm actually experiencing as a problem right now. So there's a sense of lack. The sense of lack is just really, to be honest, it's just some sense. There's just some sensation, feeling, something happening. It's not inherently a problem in and of itself, but it seems to be a problem because of something that I'm doing within myself. So you can actually look and inquire to notice what you're doing. What is that inner process? Now, most people do not, well, first of all, most people don't do the first step. And then the few who will do the first step, very rarely will they do the second step. And yet it's so important. And I'm pointing this out because you might notice that there's some excuses that come up, like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about, inner process. I can't become aware of an inner process. There is no inner process. This is just something that's happening to me. What do you mean that the sensation that I'm calling a sense of lack isn't a problem? It seems like a problem. And so the invitation here really is to slow it down. Because I promise you that everything that you need is there in you. You can discover it, you can see it, but you have to slow it down. I have coached people through this so many times. I know what happens. Oftentimes they'll reject it, they'll resist it, they'll say, I can't, there's nothing there, I don't notice it, I don't know what you're talking about. And as we slow it down more and more, because most people are going a million miles an hour inside, and they don't even realize it until we start to slow it down, and then they start to realize just how fast they've been going within themselves. It's no wonder they feel exhausted. So slow it down and start to notice, what is that process? So the process is that there's fundamentally just this sensation, let's say. And then there's whatever is happening so-called objectively. Somebody said something, there's a certain number in a bank account, there's a proposal to eat a certain way, there's something you see in the mirror, there's, other people working overtime, and, you don't feel like it. There's all of these different things that are happening, but that none of that is the problem. Those are just facts, if even. But it's what you're doing internally that is producing this problem. It's what you're doing with all of that. So slow it down and notice, what is the internal process? How do I go from not having a problem to having a problem? It has to be something that you're doing inside of yourself. So you just slow it down and observe that. And I can give you some clues. It has usually to do with some story that you're telling yourself about what it means. So there's usually this projection into the future. There's an interpretation of what's happening, giving meaning to it, projecting that into the future and giving meaning to that. And it's not a nice meaning, right? It's like, well, if I don't work extra hours, then other people won't approve of me. They won't like me. And then I'll feel rejected. And then I'll lose my job. And then I'll have no friends. And then I'll feel bad about myself. I'll feel guilty and ashamed. God will probably be upset with me. I'll become homeless. So we project this thing, and it happens so fast. You usually don't notice it, but you can notice it by slowing it down. And you just notice, and along with that, there's this resistance, this tension to the whole thing, builds up the pressure, the sense of there's this growing problem. With every step you take internally, you increase the pressure by increasing the tension. That's what lets you know this is a bigger and bigger problem. The more tension, the more resistance, the more pressure, the bigger the problem seems to be. It becomes a vicious cycle because the more you tense up, the more you seem to have a problem, the more you think about it. The more you think about it and project into the future, the more you tense up, which just round and round it goes. So that's the second step. Third step, S for stop. Now, stop is really just exactly what it says, but most people misunderstand it because they think that stopping is something they need to do, but it's not true. Stopping means to stop doing, means not doing. Because if you really pay attention to this, what's happening in the second step, you're becoming aware of what you're already doing. So the third step of stopping is not to do more trying to stop what you're already doing. Rather, it's to stop doing what you're doing. Do you understand the difference? It would be like if you're making a fist with one hand, and to stop making the fist is just to release that. But the misunderstanding would be if you're making a fist with one hand and then you try to stop making the fist by using the other hand to pry the first hand open. So you're doing something trying to antagonize the doing that you're already doing. And that's not stopping. That's just adding fuel to the fire. So stopping is a really radical thing that most people misunderstand precisely because it's so radical, because it is so different from what it is that most of us are accustomed to. Because usually when we perceive a problem, we really believe that we have to do something that seems urgent. These people are giving me a certain look. That means that they don't love me, and that means that I'm not safe and my future is in jeopardy. I need to do something. I need to make them like me. I need to make them approve of me. I need to show them that I'm right, whatever the strategy is. And so we're already in the habit of doing. And what I'm proposing with this third step is so completely radically different that most people really struggle with this. It's extraordinarily simple. It is so simple, most people fail to understand. But it really, honestly, truly is exactly what the word suggests, which is to stop. Now, as you stop, and again, I'm going to guide you through this in a moment so that you can actually experience it for yourself. But as you stop, I'll tell you up front that what can happen sometimes is that you might feel uncomfortable, precisely for the reason that I've just explained, which is that the habit is I must do something. I'm not safe. I have to solve this problem. It's urgent. I have to do something. To stop doing generates a sense of vulnerability. And at first, our minds typically rebel against that vulnerability. Not always, but sometimes. And our brains will say, I've got to do something. I have to. I can't just be here doing nothing. I've got to do something. There's a big problem. But really, the solution is to do nothing, to stop. And even if there are initial feelings of discomfort, to continue to stop anyway. Because as you do, everything starts to change. Everything starts to change, and it will start to happen sooner than you might expect. Everything that you've been chasing after, thinking you needed it, to the degree that you actually want any of it, and sometimes even when you don't really want it, it will start to come to you. And still, and this is a big, another big mistake that people will make is as soon as the things start to come to them, then again, they start chasing after the things. The money starts to come, and then instead of just continuing with this process that I've outlined, they start chasing after the money again. Again, it's like, I need the money, I need the money, I need the money. It's so great that the money started to come to me. I'm going to chase after it and get it. And then they're right back on the hamster wheel playing the same old game. So, and the same, you stop chasing after other people's approval and suddenly they start coming to you and they find you so attractive, they want to be around you. And then if you make the mistake and you start chasing after them, then you're back in the same miserable game again. So this is exactly as I've outlined it. It's no more complicated than that. And yet there are a million and one ways in which we can complicate it. So now, as I said, I would like to guide you through the process so that you can experience it for yourself. And so in order for this to make sense, uh, think of one example of a problem that you have experienced. Um, if if it's a recurring kind of problem, that would be even better. It doesn't have to be, but if there's a recurring kind of problem in relationship, money, or health, that you've experienced an example of that recently, then that would be a great place to start. So you could just bring that example to mind. And if it's not recurring, any recent example of a problem that you've experienced, bring it to mind. And as you are focused on that, notice, so step one is notice the sense of lack. You perceive a problem and you previously have had ideas, either vague or not, about what the problem was. You thought you understood something about it. But of course, that understanding didn't give you the real results that you wanted, so it couldn't have been the proper understanding. So instead, just notice, isn't it true that underneath it all, there's a sense of lack? I mean, if there was not a sense of lack, you wouldn't be having a problem. You wouldn't be getting all bent out of shape and upset about this. You wouldn't feel insecure about it because you'd just be perfectly secure in your wholeness. But instead, there's a sense of lack. Do you notice that? Now, second step is inner process. So notice and you slow it way down as much as you need, maybe even more than you think. Slow it down and notice, how did you go from no problem to problem? So you could just go back in time enough so that it's just before the problem or the perception of the problem, and then just play it through really slowly and notice there was some trigger that set it off. But that wasn't the problem in and of itself. The problem began a split second later inside of you. And just notice, what is that? What is that inner process? How did you go from no problem to problem? There was some interpretation, some meaning being applied, and some tension. Just notice it. The awareness of this in and of itself is transformative. So I cannot overstate the importance of this step, all the steps really. But a lot of the times people want to gloss over this. I promise you, the awareness of the process is itself the healing. You have been torturing yourself without knowing it. Once you become aware of the exact process that you've used to torture yourself, you have to stop. So the awareness is key. Just notice what's happening. You believe certain things, you imagine certain things, you fill in certain gaps with assumptions. You have unmet expectations. All of this stemming from this sense of lack. You're trying to compensate for the sense of lack. Now, the third step, stop. So importantly, stop does not mean restrain anything. It's not that at all. That would be something different entirely. That would be suppression. That's not what this is about. So it's not about making something stop. You're not to try and stop something else. It's just that you yourself are to stop. If there's sensation, let there be sensation. If there are habits of types of thoughts coming, let the habits play themselves out. But it's like a fan that has been unplugged. Due to the momentum, it may continue for some little while to spin, but it will stop as long as you don't engage it. Every time you fight with it, every time you struggle, every time you get involved, every time you're trying to stop something, then you're actually fueling it. So to stop means you stop. Just notice every impulse to try and jump in there and solve something and understand something and fix something, make it right. They should understand me. They should appreciate me. They have to see how wonderful I am, or else they're going to leave me. Whatever it is. And just see, by the way, that all the money things and all the health things, and this might be really surprising. I know it has been for me, shocking even, but it all comes down to fundamentally, again, perceiving that there's something lacking in you, but then thinking that you need something, the money, for example, so that you can get the attention and approval and validation from others. Shocking. I know, because you think it's about something else. You think it's about the money, but it's not. And with the health too. I know it's really tempting to think it's about the health, but it's not. Just notice the more that you make it about the money or the health, the worse things get. Because all along it was about the sense of lack and believing that you need something from outside of yourself in order for you to be complete. You were going to get that from other people. Other people would approve of you. Other people would accept you. Other people would like you. Other people would love you. Other people would validate you. Oh, look how attractive you are. Oh, look how healthy you are. Oh, look how much you know. Oh, look at how much status you have. You have all of the things. You've been so successful because you feel empty. And all of the inner process is attempting to solve the problem that you can't solve because it's false. It's absolutely false. You can't solve the problem of lack because it doesn't exist. The more you allow, the more you stop all of the things that you've been doing, the clearer it becomes that there has never been a deficiency, never been anything wrong with you, never been any lack. It was a misunderstanding. It's absolutely impossible for there to be anything wrong with you. It does not matter how many people laugh at you, don't like you, ostracize you, judge you, or anything else. It is absolutely impossible that there could be anything wrong with you. And the more you try to fill that void through all of the various strategies that you've picked up along the way, the more that it just seems to validate the false idea that there's something wrong with you. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, the person who's trying to, their strategy is they're going to be better than everybody else. And of course, it's just annoying, isn't it? I mean, nobody wants to be friends with that person. So then it just seems to feed into this. Oh, I guess there's something wrong with me. Has to be something wrong with me. Nobody wants to be my friend. Even though look at how great I am. I've worked so hard. Must be something wrong with me. So I promise you, this method is the answer. So let's try it again. Choose something else, something completely different, or it seems completely different. It's not different at all, but some other problem, maybe a different context. So specific example of when you've experienced this problem. Bring that to mind now and focus on it. And as you do, step one, notice sense of lack. So whatever you think the problem is, just notice underlying that is a sense of lack. No matter, I mean, you might have been trying to solve this problem for a long time, thinking it was something else, and it never worked. In fact, it just made things worse, didn't it? So now you're on the right track because you're telling the truth that the real underlying problem has been that you perceived that there was a sense of lack and you were trying to fix that, which will never work because it's a false problem. But nonetheless, that's what's underlying it. Second step, as you continue to focus on this example of when you experience this problem, notice the inner process. So there was a point at which this problem was not there, and then something happened, and then the problem began. And notice that the actual problem began inside. It might have been instigated or triggered by some external thing, something that somebody said, something you saw, whatever it is. But that thing, that external thing was not the problem itself. It's not possible for you to experience that as a problem. Rather, that initiated an inner process by which you generated the problem. So just notice that inner process and slow it down as much as you need to so that you can become aware of what that process is. How did you turn a non-problem into a problem? And then finally, third step, stop. When you really get this, it's such a relief. You can finally give yourself permission, just stop. You don't have to solve this problem because it's a false problem. All you have to do is stop making it a problem. So I have just outlined for you what constitutes the real problem and the real solution. And for anybody who works with what I've just outlined sincerely, I can promise you that you will get the results. You will discover that really, truly, you need nothing. You will discover a freedom that is so profound, it will shock you in a very good way. And this will allow you then to be like a magnet that attracts to you everything that you truly desire. Not because you're straining and struggling, chasing after things the old way, but instead because those are the things that come to you naturally. So that's my promise to you. I hope that you'll take me up on that. Now, let me say a few things and then I'll answer questions. So I want to say that for anybody who is interested in continuing to work with this, I recognize that trying to do this on your own is very challenging. And if you are interested in receiving my support with this and with anything else that would support you in life to help you to get the results that you're really wanting in life, then I encourage you to check out the Self Mastery Academy that I offer. It is a really unique program that allows you to get support directly from me on an ongoing basis so that you can get answers to your questions so that you can resolve the challenges that you're facing in your life so that you can achieve the results that you really want. And you can get much greater clarity than what you might have had up to now in terms of what you really want in life and how you can achieve that. For those who are ready to take that step, you can check that out at joeylott.com/self dash mastery. And on YouTube, I'll provide that link there. And for anybody who is not sure about making that investment just yet, then I recommend that you check out the the free book that I offer a digital copy of on my website. It's called How to Be the Creator of Your Reality. It's absolutely free, and you can get that just by going to my website and signing up there, and you'll get instant access to that. And that covers 5 of the fundamental laws that govern creation. And when you understand those, it's very complementary to what I've talked about today. And just putting those into practice on a regular basis, that's the key with all this stuff. You have to put it into practice regularly. When you put those into practice regularly, you're going to see results. So I encourage you to get that because it's absolutely free to you. It's a relatively quick read, but it's very powerful. So do yourself a favor and get that. So now, as promised, I'm going to answer any questions that anybody has right now that's related to what it is that I've shared here. And then after that, we'll wrap up this portion and then we'll move on to the group coaching. So we'll do questions just related to, and just typing them in the chat that are related just to what I've shared today so that you can get clarity on how to use it, how to work with it so that you can get the results in your life. Okay, so this is just about if you have questions about, I don't understand the steps, I don't understand how this works, I don't understand why this works, I'm not convinced that it's going to help me with X, Y, and Z problem, those kinds of things, so that you can start to move forward with this. Okay, so I'm going to answer those questions, and then we'll wrap up this portion, and then we'll move on to the group coaching for those who are here live. For those who will watch us on YouTube, also share your questions in the comment section because that way I can respond to you. I want to make sure that you also can have all of your questions answered so that you can get results with this as well. So I'm going to just open up the chat and I'll respond to the questions in the chat and then we'll wrap up this portion. All right. So some comments here. It says inner child never got love it needed. Great. Yeah. So you're recognizing that this is working for you, saying, yes, I am everything. Fabulous. Okay. Just looking at this song here. Okay. Um, just looking for the questions. Okay, so can this be combined with the 3 steps to calm down? So I think you might be referring to the active relaxation method that I offered last week. Yes, absolutely. I would say that they're extraordinarily complementary, and feel free to work with them and experiment with what sequence or pattern works best for you. I would suggest that you might want to start if you're feeling particularly stressed and you're having a hard time being able to apply this method that I've shared today. I would recommend that you first do the active relaxation method that I shared last week. And if I remember, I'll link to that video in the YouTube posting of this video, so people who watch this on YouTube will be able to watch that video as well. So it says I need help with the inner process related to injury. So yes, we can do that in the group coaching. I think that would be the best time to do that. So we have a comment here. I needed my mother to recognize my inner feelings. Yes, that's absolutely what it seems like as a child. And we were innocent and we didn't know any better. You know, that was what our parents knew. So that's what they taught us. That's what television taught us. That's what our teachers taught us. So we really believed that we needed other people in order for us to know ourselves or be complete within ourselves. But the good news is that when you apply this method that I shared today, you can discover the real truth, which is that that was never true. You've always been complete within yourself. Clearly, your inner feelings are yours, and you don't need anything or anyone else to recognize that. So we've got a question. Do I just stop trying to do anything with my pain slash symptoms and let the related emotions come up? Yes. So you can notice how you've been attempting to, and I'm assuming this is with a chronic condition. If you've been trying to solve that problem and it hasn't worked, then continuing to try to do the same thing and expect different results would be a definition of insanity. So you don't want to do that. So instead, what I'm proposing is notice that actually you have misunderstood the real problem, that underneath it all there was a sense of lack. And there's an inner process that translates that into a problem for you. And so the symptoms are that you're experiencing are in part probably a both a result of the problem that you're generating, and also they are a trigger of that for you. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So applying this method is definitely going to help. You just follow those steps. So you notice that it's starting from a sense of lack. There's an inner process that translates not a problem into a problem for you. And then just simply allow. Stop trying to do anything about it. Just allow. It's hard for me to say which of those steps is the most challenging. All of them can be relatively challenging. This is a very advanced lesson. I should have said that from the beginning. So we've got somebody says lack is like bugs always around. Well, it seems that way until you investigate it. And this method that I'm sharing with you today allows you to discover the truth of it. It allows you to discover that what you conceived of as lack was never actually lack. In fact, the irony is that it's actually wholeness. But me saying that doesn't solve anything for you. You have to discover that for yourself. But I promise you, applying this method will allow you to discover that. Have a comment here that says, just wanted to comment that I'm seeing a lot of progress. I'm experiencing a shift in my relationship to the painful sensations. I've been seriously dedicated to practicing the pause, then body scan and let go method that you talked about last week, and it's working great. Awesome. Happy to hear that. Question is more, how does this work with trying to manifest what I want? Do I imagine what I want and then try to actively relax through any resistance? Great question. So you can work with this in a number of ways. I mean, the very advanced approach, which is probably not suitable for most of us, but it's worth mentioning, is to do only what I've described today. Because I was not deceiving you in any way. When you do what the steps that I've outlined, everything that you truly want will come to you. I'm not saying that you won't take any action. Of course, you very likely will take action, but the action that you'll take will seem virtually effortless. It won't be forced. It won't be done because you feel that there's a sense of lack and you have to compensate by trying to do something to fix that. Instead, when you practice what it is that I've shared today consistently, you will discover that action, any action that's required, will just naturally flow from you. Again, virtually effortlessly. And things will just come to you. So some things will come clearly as a result of the action, but other things will just flow to you. Many of the things that you were chasing after, the thing that many of us miss is that if you think about it, if you're chasing after things, then you're it's a very needy energy. And if you think about it, if you've ever known somebody in your life who's very needy, you might have noticed it's kind of repulsive, right? You don't really want to be around somebody who's needy. So if you are needy, then you are repulsing what it is that you want. I should have said this earlier because it's really an important point to understand, but I'm saying it now. So for those who stuck around, it's great. There is a value in sticking around. So when you put into practice consistently what it is that I've shared today, then that's going to change. You are going to discover more and more and more clearly and deeply and directly that you are already whole and complete. There is nothing that you need. I know that might seem strange now, but it's the honest truth. And from that, that's why I said you become like a magnet that attracts to you everything that you want. The moment that you stop chasing, the many of the things that you were chasing will suddenly become attracted to you. It's a weird thing, but I promise you it's true. Put it into practice, find out. So that's one thing. The other thing is for us mere mortals who have a difficult time doing that to that extreme, then yes, you can definitely combine this with other things that I've taught about working with your desires. So you can go through the exercise of getting, and I think it's useful for all of us for the most part anyway, go through the exercise on a regular basis, preferably daily, of writing out what you want. This is useful for a number of reasons that I'm not going to get into detail on right now, but just trust me on it. It's a very positive thing. If you just take even just a minute, literally just 1 minute every day, and just write out what do you want. It should become a very short list after not a lot of time, and it will get clearer and clearer and clearer and clearer. So then that would be the first step. And then as you're giving attention to what it is that you want based on that exercise, so you have clarity about what you want, then you can definitely combine what it is that I've shared today with that. So you notice when you put attention on what you want, notice where there's any kind of sense of a problem, a resistance, an obstacle, a fear, a limiting belief, whatever it is. And then you can apply this process that I've shared today because that will help to clear that stuff. So, just to make that explicit, I would say, let's say you have three things that you want that you've written out. So, one at a time, you'll go through them. You could start with the first one. Put attention on that. Just imagine whatever that is. So, I'll use my example of $1 million. So, the first one is I want $1 million. So, I imagine, okay, I have $1 million. Then I could notice, well, what comes up that seems to oppose that where there's a sense of a problem of some kind, resistance, obstacle. And whatever that is, I can then apply this method that I shared today in order to release that. And you could do that with each obstacle or resistance that comes up. Uh, so this is a question here that says sense of lack produces symptoms. Symptoms are expression of the sense of lack. In some cases, yes. I'm not suggesting in all cases. I mean, if you, uh, there are certain things that let's say that you like fell and broke your arm, um, then you might have pain and swelling that would not be solely due to a sense of lack. But many times symptoms will be due to a sense of lack because we generate the problem within ourselves, and then the symptoms are an expression of that. So I'm not saying in all cases, but in many cases that is true. Uh, in any case, regardless of the whether the symptoms are produced by a sense of lack or for other reasons, you can still apply the method that I've shared today because the problem is not the symptoms. So if you perceive that the symptoms are the problem, then you are caught up in a vicious cycle that leads nowhere good. So instead, by applying the method that I shared today, you can begin to transform that. Whether the symptoms go or not is it's a secondary matter. What's primary is to resolve the false sense of the problem to begin with. Question here that says inner process, is there question mark? So then it says, is there a letting go slash stop of the inner process? Oh, allowing. Yes. So the inner process, the second step is just to bring awareness to what the inner process is. Because as I said, that awareness is in that's really the transformation. That's where the real change takes place. Without that, you can't do anything. So that's a really essential step. And then the letting go or the stopping is not to it's not to stop the inner process, although the inner process will stop. The only reason I make that distinction, it's a subtle distinction, but if you think of the inner process as a thing that's happening, then and then you think that you're trying to stop that, then it would be like the scenario that I described of trying to open the fist with the other hand. So that's not what I'm talking about. But if you understand the inner process as an activity that you are doing, then to stop that is simply to not do it. So you're not fighting against it or resisting it, but rather you become aware that you are doing it and you stop doing. So somebody says, are not some needs not from lack, like companionship, if you are in a very full place within, but it's not safe to be alone and without connection? I'm not sure I understand this question properly, but if the way I'm understanding it is if you're in a very full place, but it is not safe to be alone without connection, then that makes no sense to me. If you really know wholeness, then you have no need for anything. Uh, so if I understood that specific question, then correctly, then my answer would be that's in that specific case, um, then what you're describing is not actually wholeness, a recognition of wholeness. Because if you actually recognize wholeness, then there's absolutely no need for anything. The idea that it's not safe to be alone makes no sense from the point of view of wholeness. Wholeness is never alone. Wholeness doesn't need anyone to be alone or to not be alone because wholeness is already whole. Um, Question here about manifesting truth Zoom sessions in EU time. I think I might have gotten your email. So Central European time, we meet at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern time on Tuesdays. That it would be 5 p.m. Central European time. Somebody wants a quick recap of the 3 steps. So the acronym is SLIPS, SLIPS. SL stands for the first step, which is sense of lack. So just notice that the real problem is stemming from an inner sense of lack. Second step is represented by IP, which stands for inner process. So just slow down and notice the inner process that you're using in order to generate the sense of the problem. Third step is represented by S, which is stop. Question here. So all these physical, mental problems, pain effects are not directly the problem. They are just from a cause within. Yeah, none of those, nothing is the problem other than you perceiving that you are lacking and then the inner process that stems from that. So uh, objectively, there's no possibility of a problem. Problems are only subjective. Objectively, they're only facts. Subjectively, you can imagine that those facts mean things and you can make those meanings into problems. Okay, so this person says, I write down everything I want to have or to do every day since 2 weeks, and the more I write, the more I know what I truly want. Yes, thank you for sharing that. That's what I've been promising. So now everybody has proof. So you can also follow in the footsteps and get the results. Somebody says, I love it when my problems are an illusion. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to discover that. This person says, what do you do when the negative mental process comes back over and over and over again? Uh, more awareness. Awareness is in a sense, awareness is always the answer. Um, so because what's going on there is you haven't yet, if it keeps coming back, it's not a punishment. It's not because life is cruel. It's not because God doesn't love you. It's none of those things. It's only because uh, you want to learn something and you haven't learned it yet. You want to learn something about what it is, the mistake that you've been making that's resulting in the pain. And so you continue to offer yourself the opportunity to learn that. And that's why it continues to come back over and over and over again. So the answer is awareness. Slow it down even more. I uh, cannot overstate the value of slowing things down. The reason why, or a reason why, is that unconscious processes happen fast, relatively speaking. And that's great because, I mean, unconscious is not bad. Unconscious allows you to do many things at the same time. That's why you can drive and have a conversation at the same time. Does that mean you're doing those things unconsciously? Yes, it does. You can drive and have a conversation at the same time, and it's an unconscious activity. At the moment you make something conscious, you can only do that one thing. You cannot do multiple things consciously at the same time. You can only do one thing consciously. And when you slow things down enough, you force yourself to become conscious. So there's these very well rehearsed inner processes that lead to suffering, that lead to pain, that lead to problems. And they happen automatically and they happen very fast. And you cannot be aware of them when they're happening in that way because they're unconscious. You can make them conscious by slowing it down. So that's always the key is slow it down even more. You sometimes people they think I've already slowed it down so much I couldn't slow it down anymore. And I say, okay, let's slow it down just a little bit more. Like take it, one step at a time. And suddenly it's like the light went on and they say, oh, you mean that? Yeah, that. That's always so nice when people are like, oh, yes, that, exactly that right there. Now you just solved your own problem. So slow it down even more because then you become aware, and that awareness is the real cure. Um, this person says, I know people, whole people who still want relationships, financial security, etc. Is a child safe to be alone or an old person? So, I'm not, you're not a child, so this is not, so that question doesn't really is not relevant. And an old person, yes. I mean, why are you going to make an exception for an old person? Uh, the anybody who find ultimately everybody finds themselves alone. Everybody is trying desperately. Well, hold on, let me take a step back. In the framework of multiplicity, when people believe in separation, then it is inevitable they find themselves alone. That is the state that you find yourself in. And most people are trying to solve that. So it's just another way of saying what I was saying earlier about a sense of lack. If you perceive that you are separate, you are going to perceive that you are alone, i.e., lacking. And you're going to make that into a problem. And if you start from that point of view, then it necessarily follows that you'll justify whatever it is that you do that causes the problem. When if you and so there's no end to that. I mean, as long as you refuse to be willing to sincerely investigate and discover the truth of what it is that I've suggested here today, then there will continue to be thoughts arguing as to why there might be exceptions, theoretical exceptions. However, so notice you said, I know whole people who still want relationships. So I didn't say a person who knows themselves to be whole and complete might not have a want for a relationship. They have no need for a relationship. It's a difference. And so it's really important to make that distinction for yourself between want and need. Frank, yes. I'll, if I got a message about it, then I'll definitely take care of that. If I don't respond to that, then it means I didn't get a message. So you'll have to remind me some other way. So somebody says, can you just believe that I am perfect, whole, and complete with this release the lack? No, that's like trying to you've got a a rotting house and you give it a fresh coat of paint. Sorry about that. Paint of coat of paint. You put paint over a rotting house. Not a good idea. It's not going to solve the problem. So just this idea of just I'm gonna affirm I am perfect, whole, and complete. 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 It could work, but the likelihood of it working is pretty slim, so I don't recommend it. I think that again, awareness is key. See that it's fundamentally false, and this method that I've given you today can allow you to directly recognize that it's false. Until you recognize that it's false, you're still trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist. You can't solve a problem that doesn't exist. You can't solve lack because it doesn't exist. So that's my suggestion there. Somebody else says they've gained clarity since beginning to write down the things they want. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Somebody says, are limiting beliefs held in place by energy that is stuck or resisted? They're held in place. Maybe that's true. Um, Mainly they're held in place by lack of awareness. It comes back to what I was saying earlier about unconscious, unconscious. If I mean the beliefs, any beliefs are unconscious. You might be conscious of that you have the belief, but you're not conscious of the actual belief itself. You're just conscious of the meaning that you assign to it, but you're not conscious of the whole belief itself. Because if you were conscious of the belief itself, you would recognize that it's actually not true, and then it would dissolve. So if there's a limiting belief that you want to release, then bringing sufficient awareness to it is what's key to release it. It's possible that what you said is true, uh, but I mean, it's true. Resistance is what keeps things going, but the resistance is also part of the unconscious pattern. So just becoming conscious is the most useful thing. Can I just allow the stuck energy instead of addressing those limiting beliefs to be freed of them? Oh, well, that's true. In as much as so when you're aware of that the belief has been activated, then simply you could apply the method from last week, the active relaxation method. That will definitely work. Would using this method today work? Using the method today would also work. Either or both would work. Not to say there's the only methods that would work. I mean, because obviously there are other methods that would work. But to answer your question, yes, just allowing will work when the belief is activated, because you won't, as you say, you won't be resisting it. So it will be released. I'm not going to go into detail why that is today, but yes, that's true. Somebody says, does this process break the way of thinking or the habit of negative thinking which manifests the reality? Yes, definitely. Um, yeah, because the way of thinking and the habit of negative thinking is fundamentally based on the perception of lack. So, and can any problem, no matter how complicated, be solved? Yeah, because any problem is is only you have created the problem, so you can uncreate the problem. There's no such thing as an objective problem. There's only subjective problems. You created it, you can definitely release it. There's no question about that. And then I think this is the last one here. So we'll wrap it up with this one. What is the difference between want and need? As I'm using those terms, I'm saying that a need would be something that you depend upon for your existence or completeness. And a want is something that, as I'm using the term, I'm sure other people can use different definitions, and that's fine. But as I'm using the term here, a want would be something that you perceive would be like icing on the cake. It'd be like a nice thing, but you don't need it. You're not dependent upon it. It's like it would be nice to go to the beach. If I don't go to the beach, I'm perfectly fine, right? So that could be a want. It'd be nice to have a to be together. As the person was saying earlier, they know people who are whole who have want for relationships with other people. So maybe I'm like, yeah, I don't need anything, but I maybe would enjoy having the opportunity to share moments or communicate with other people, but I don't need it. So that's the distinction that I'm making. So for those who are here live, we'll stay on for the group coaching. For those who will watch us on YouTube, who are watching to this point, congratulations to you. Your life will change because you've demonstrated that you're somebody who wants that change and you're willing to actually show up and do what's necessary. So put into practice what it is that I've shared. You'll see the results. Just one more reminder that if you do want my support in a more robust way, you can get that by joining Self Mastery Academy. That's at joeylott.com/self-mastery. I'll put that link in the description on YouTube. And if you're not ready for that investment yet, you can at least get the free book that I offer, the digital version, which is How to Be the Creator of Your Reality. It's a really powerful read, so I suggest that you get it. In fact, anybody who hasn't gotten that yet, please get it. It's important and it will help you. And if you've downloaded it but you haven't read it, read it. That's why I wrote it. So again, for those who are here live, we'll stay on for group coaching. For everybody else, blessings to you. Bye for now. Take care.